Hey everybody, today we're talking about how to make our pickup on our acoustic instrument sound good. I wish it was just as easy as slapping a pickup on the instrument, plug it into whatever you want, play however you want, and it's going to sound amazing. It's not quite that easy. There are a few complicating factors, and we're going to get into those a little bit today so that your acoustic instrument with a pickup can sound as good as it deserves to. The first thing I want to say is make sure you're listening to tape. Record your ensemble, record yourself pretty regularly, and you want to make sure that you're listening to the tape to make sure your instrument sounds good on tape. Why is tape important? We'll get into that. If it doesn't sound good on tape, we got to figure out why, and then I might have a couple of tips and tricks for you here in this video. The reason we record and listen to tape is that's going to give you the closest approximation to what the audience experience is. They cannot hear the instrument under your ear. They can only hear what's coming out of the speakers. So we want to make sure that what's coming out of the speakers is good. When you're on stage, depending on how loud your monitors are, how loud your band is, you're probably hearing a combination of what's coming out underneath your ear and what's coming out of the speakers. That's not necessarily what your audience is hearing. So that's why I recommend recording. Also, and this is just a very brief aside here, trying to make the recorded sound, the sound that's on tape, sound exactly like your instrument sounds under your ear. That could send you down a rabbit hole you're going to be chasing the rest of your life. My advice is we're aiming for good. Right? Now, I'm not trying to exactly duplicate what's under my ear. I just want what's coming out of the speakers to sound good. And there's a range of things that sound good, right? This sounds good, a little darker sounds good, a little brighter sounds good. As long as we're inside that window of what's good, I'm happy. Okay, remember, good is a window, not a point. So be a little bit forgiving with yourself. Putting a pickup on your acoustic instrument will affect the tone of your instrument. You are affecting the vibrations of that instrument in order to capture them. There's not any way around that, but don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. If your acoustic sounds a little bit different under your ear because you've put a pickup on it, do not worry about that. Remember, your audience cannot hear what's under your ear. They only hear what's coming out of the speakers. So we got to worry about what's coming out of the speakers, not what's under our ear. That is the most important thing. There are probably four main issues I think that people bump into when they're saying, man, my pickup doesn't sound as good as I want it to sound. I think technique, gear, EQ, and effects are sort of the four that I broke it into, and I want to get into these a little bit for you. With technique, my advice is to go easy, okay? Release the death grip on your left hand. Your right hand, man, lighten that thing way up. There's no reason to have to beat the sound out of an instrument. You know, when you're playing in a concert hall with an unamplified violin, you're really trying to fill this hall. You're digging into this instrument. That doesn't work well with pickups. We could get into why. All I can tell you is that the lighter you play, I would say sort of a medium pressure with your right hand, lighten up. Don't dig in. If you can't hear yourself, turn the amp up. Don't dig in harder. All it's going to do is digging in harder is make that thing sound screechy and loud rather than good and loud. So I've got a couple little examples that I recorded that I want you to hear the difference between sort of medium right hand pressure, high right hand pressure, and light right hand pressure. And I think you're going to, at least for me, the medium pressure is far, far better. All right. And by the way, all these samples that you're going to hear today are recorded directly into the interface. There's no mic in the room. It is a wire from the instrument right into the interface. Unless otherwise noted, we may be running through some other gear, but there's no mic in the room. This is all direct from the pickup of the instrument. Okay. We're not going to dig deep into different types of pickups and mic in this particular discussion. We've got a video that I will put a link to that we do go through a bunch of different mics and pickups. You want to make sure that you're using a mic or a pickup that is capable of giving you the tone that you want. It always starts with the source. So make sure that you're using the best possible gear for your instrument. And I can't say there's a best mic or a best pickup. It's just which one sounds the best to your ear on your instrument. So I'd recommend checking out that video. The other question is, how do we install this? Is this installed properly, or where did I put the pickup on the instrument? Location can matter quite a bit. For this demonstration, I'm using a Cremona pickup that inserts into the wing slot of the bridge. It can go on the bass side or the treble side. There's not a right or a wrong. There's just which one sounds best to you. So I'm going to let you hear one on the bass side and one on the treble side, and you can decide which one sounds best to you. Try it out on your instrument. Maybe try switching sides if you're not super satisfied with the sound you're getting. All right, so we've addressed technique. We've addressed which pickup am I using, have I installed it on the instrument correctly. The next thing is, what am I plugging into? And what I mean is, what is the very first thing your instrument's plugging into? Are you going from the instrument through a wire to a DI? We going into a preamp? We going into a wireless? We going into a pedal board? We going into an amplifier? All of those things are going to affect your tone. And if you're not satisfied with your tone, and you've sort of already addressed technique, you've already addressed the pickup issue, then it's time to think about, what am I plugging into? Okay. I know it's really simple to just go from the instrument straight into a DI and, hey, I want to trust other people to handle this. If you're working with people who are really good at this, maybe that's going to work for you. But if you're not satisfied, if you're not satisfied with the sound that you're getting, we may want to address that. You know, what am I plugging directly into, and maybe start changing that. So I'm going to give you a demonstration of an instrument plugged directly into an interface and then into two different preamps. First one's going to be a LR Baggs Acoustic DI, and the next one's going to be a Fishman Aura, and you'll probably hear a fairly significant difference between those two. All right, so pretty big difference between just the direct sound and the one going into those two different preamps. We do have a video about why might I want a preamp, and I'll put up a link there. It's going to dig a little deeper into the whole preamp thing. But to me, they sort of take a little bit of the edge off that sound, sort of that bitey, direct, pickup-y sound. A preamp is going to help quite a bit with that. Another thing that is going to help are some effects. I like sort of using maybe some food analogies. I'd say reverb is a little like salt. Like you probably want a little bit of that on most of the things that you eat. You want to use it well, but don't go too crazy. Problem is, sometimes people will just start drowning stuff in reverb, thinking that's going to be the fix, and then now it sounds like you're playing you did sound scratchy. Now you sound like you're scratchy and you're in a well. So we don't want to do that. But so I'll give you an example of a recording of me playing with it dry, which is what we say when there's no effects on it, and then with a little bit of reverb, and then yeah. All right, so reverb just sort of, you know, makes it sound like you're in a room a little bit rather than, oh boy, wow, that's right here in my face. Another thing we'll say, if we're going to say reverb is like salt, maybe delay is like garlic. You know, you want garlic on some of the things you eat, but not all the things you eat. It is pretty handy. It's not always appropriate, but it can be pretty nice, especially if you use it intelligently, sort of, you know, down in there so it's maybe not slamming you in the face, but it will sort of thicken up and fatten up your sound a little bit. Let's listen to a little bit. This has got a little bit of reverb on it, but also some delay. All right, so we've covered technique, we've covered the pickup, we've covered what am I plugging into, we've talked about reverb and delay a little bit. Here's the big one. EQ is super important. And I would say that unless you really, really trust your engineer, you should handle the EQ stuff yourself. A lot of engineers do not necessarily have a lot of experience on how to rescue a really bitey violin sound. They may think it's supposed to sound that way. And yes, I do trust my engineer to do enough EQ to fit me into a mix, but I want to make sure that what I'm sending him or her sounds good before they even get it. I don't want them to have the responsibility of making me sound good. I want them to have the responsibility of fitting me into the mix. I want to make sure I sound good. So I want to make sure that I've got a little bit of EQ on my stuff before they get it. And unfortunately, this is the question I get all the time. No, I cannot give you an EQ curve. Well, tell me what to boost and what to cut. It's going to be different in every place you play. It's going to be different on every PA you plug into. It's going to be different in every ensemble you play in. If I'm playing in my trio where it's just violin, bass, and drums, I'm going to have a different EQ than if I'm playing with two guitars and an acoustic and all this other stuff. It's going to be different. I will say there are a couple of principles that I try to live by. I'll say subtractive EQ is better than additive. I'm not trying to boost frequencies. I'm trying to cut what I don't want. If you cut away the things that are bad, what you're left with is what's good. So subtractive EQ is better than additive. I will say for acoustic violins with pickups on them, 3 to 5 kilohertz is often problematic. And I will say that under 180 or 200 hertz is problematic. I would just get rid of that. Anything under 180 or 200 hertz, I would pretty much dump that. We have a video on high pass filters and why you might want one. I think that's going to be helpful for you too. So I want you to hear, I'm going to play another video for you with the Frishman preamp and then one with the highs turned down on that preamp a little bit. I think you'll hear sort of a subtle difference, but it's going to be better. I think you can hear sort of the high end on that is tamed a little bit. Now, remember when we said earlier that trying to make your pickup sound exactly like your violin is a little difficult, right? Because when we put a pickup on the instrument, It's interrupting some of these vibrations that are making your instrument sound the way it sounds. Without digging too deeply into this, and there is another video, and I'll put up a link to that other video, there are images and IRs and sort of some corrective stuff that's out there. I will say that it might be helpful to look into products like the V-Sound or the Tone Dexter, or LR Baggs has one. There's a number of products out there that can sort of take that pickup sound and make it sound more like a mic. They're out there. This other video that I put up a link to is going to dig way deeper into that. But here is just a bit of a sound of when I'm using an image from this Fishman Aura DI. All right, so that is a lot of stuff for you. It's a lot of stuff. We're talking about technique. We're talking about pickups. We're talking about what do you plug it into. We're talking about effects. We're talking about EQ. It's rarely one thing that is going to say, hey, this is going to make my pickup on my instrument sound great. It's going to be a little bit of a lot of things. But I just wanted you to have a little bit of an intro into those things and maybe give you some links to other videos that we've talked about that are going to help you dig a little deeper. I do want you to hear one more video that I stripped the audio out of this video that I recorded here in the shop, took it into my studio, put a little bit more aggressive EQ on it, and put a studio reverb on it. This is going to be something more similar to what a good front of house person can do for you. That's maybe not what you're going to be able to do in your rig, but this is what a good front of house person can touch up your EQ a little bit more, put maybe a little bit nicer reverb on there than what you can do. And this is going to maybe give you some hope about what your acoustic with a pickup can sound like. All right, so hey, thank you for watching the video. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube, and then there's a couple other videos you may want to check out. Hopefully that's helping you. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments section, or you can find us on any of the other socials. You can email us or give us a call here at the shop. We're happy to help you. All right, thanks.